Today, we have 13 players that are probably on your 0-3 and 1-2 fantasy football teams that you are probably panicked on. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these players, kind of talk through them. Are we panicked? Are we panic selling? Are we looking to change, within the same tier? How do we value these guys and how do your league mates value them? And are we kind of buying on some of these players even as well? So, Danny, let's kick it off with the wide receiver position because there are a lot of underperforming wide receivers. Every single receiver we're talking about today was drafted inside of the top 5 rounds, and each one of them is outside of the top 40 wide receivers in points per game right now. A guy that a lot of people are panicked on, and one that you actually possess in our Flock League, so you can give personal experience for how you feel about this player, is Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and Drake London, in terms of a panic meter, out of 10 is kind of the style we did last week. I would say last week I was probably at a 1 or a 2. This week I'm probably at about a 3.5, specifically in relation to how Michael Penix looked. I thought Michael Penix really struggled in week 3, a game that they were favored 5.5 points on the road, going up against the Carolina Panthers defense that teams have really had their way against. And Michael Penix just simply was off. Now, it's a blip on the radar. It's one game in a 6-game sample. We've seen this guy play good football before. We saw, for example, that happen in week 1. But I think it also adds context to the fact that Michael Penix probably going to be volatile all year. Maybe he's not like that ascending top 12, top 15 level quarterback we maybe thought after week 1. Maybe he's just, a solid average starter. And that still works for Drake London. Again, we still like Drake London as a potential low-end wide receiver one rest of the season. But maybe the access to the 22 points per game, league-breaking Michael Thomas 2019 level upside I cited, maybe that's not in range, but could he average 18.5 points per game? I think he can still get up to there about.
Yeah, I think when you look at the peripherals, 91% of the routes, 26% target share, that's about kind of what we expected in terms of what he's getting. The problem for him actually has been that he only has a 7.7 average depth of target. And if you recall last year when Penix took over and played those 3 games, the one thing that London actually had really going in his favor was this like air it out mentality that Michael Penix had in the red zone, downfield, and that kind of thing. So yeah, Penix played bad. No sugarcoating it. He looked terrible in that game. And Penix as a prospect, we were worried about some of the things that really came to fruition, which is, he was a good decision maker in college, but he also had like a superstar cast of wide receivers at Washington. So they were able to bail him out. And when he made, the correct read, he was able to get the football where it needed to go, but he was struggling under pressure. He had some misfires in college as well. So I'm a little bit worried about the quarterback, and I do think that factors in. Another thing that you made reference to there was the whole like Michael Thomas usage is what we thought he was going to get. And his slot usage has gone down coming in from last season, which is where he did a lot of his damage.
So only 4 catches for 30 yards. I actually saw this cited by, I believe, Josh. Over
yeah, that's
Twitter.
Exactly who I saw tweeted as well. Josh Norris tweeted that out.
4 catches for 30 yards so far in 3 games from the slot. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Maybe that's they didn't want to play him in the slot as much, physical, interior type of usage because of the shoulder injury. That could be a factor. That, of course, happened in week 1. Maybe they've been hesitant to kind of put him in that role, but that's the ideal optimal role we need for him to produce. Because last year, over 530 receiving yards, the tweet said that he actually had operating out of the slot. So the main allure of Drake London as being like that big physical chain moving wide receiver that can contribute after the catch. Kind of similar to kind of what we see with Puka Nacua with the Rams. We just simply haven't seen it as much this year. And again, maybe we do see it more now that he's more recovered from that shoulder injury. We'll find out more, a lot more this week. Because like I said, I'm at about 3. I'm not sure if you gave a number. What number would you be out of 10?
I would say I'm about at a 4 right now. We saw J.C. Horn really stifle Harrison, and he's actually just been so good this year. So it's possible he took London kind of out of this game. Drake London is second in the NFL in first read targets right now too. So like this is a dude that can still get there on pure target volume, 160 plus targets. Like you said, get to that like 18 plus points per game. He needs to play better. The quarterback needs to play better. That's right. If you believe in Michael Penix, if you believe in Drake London, the player, you shouldn't be worried. But if you're starting to get a little hesitant on this, he has had some tough matchups. He was playing through a shoulder injury. There's reasons to believe that things could get better here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Drake London, still a guy that we like, but maybe instead of being the potential first-round player we had coming into the year, you're looking more so about a mid-second, potentially late-second asset right now that if he hits his upside, probably going to be more so of a 1-2 turn, top 15 level guy.
Yeah. And the same can be said for Ladd Mcconkey, who was also selected in the second round, who coming into the season, what we expected out of Ladd Mcconkey, his usage right now, 94% of the routes, 21% target share, 10.4 fantasy points per game, wide receiver 43. Now, While I think that'll regress positively, he might only be limited to a mid wide receiver 2, maybe high end wide receiver 2 at best case scenario, because Keenan Allen, as long as he's healthy, is playing really well and taking away some of those shorter intermediate targets and is actually out targeting Ladd McConkey. And then Quentin Johnson has been the big play merchant who's kind of taken away some of the stuff we saw in that wild card game that got everybody so excited about Ladd McConkey, was how good he looked on deep targets and down the field and yards after catch. So a combination of factors with Ladd. The positive is that like Herbert's playing out of his mind. So if Ladd plays better, then Herbert can bring him along for the ride on what could be an MVP season for the Chargers quarterback. But the problem right now is this target competition is actually factoring in. It's mattering. It's not just that Keenan Allen is there and he's taking away some targets. It's not just that Quentin Johnson is there and he's taking away some targets. Those guys are playing like legitimate top 20 receivers in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, you have 3 guys on this team with over 20 targets this year, and Ladd is third. He's got 21, Quentin Johnson 24, Keenan Allen 28. I do think it should be noted that the reason we were so confident in taking Ladd McConkey in the second round is that he was the clear alpha working with a star, potentially superstar level quarterback with Justin Herbert. From a situational perspective, everything has lived up to that expectation and, in fact, exceeded that expectation. We are seeing the Chargers drop back. We are seeing them be one of the highest pass rate over expectation teams in the league. But the fact of the matter is, Ladd McConkey can't be an alpha if Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen are going to play this well. Can he get up to a 23, 24% target share, potentially lead this team in targets? I think that's going to eventually happen. But at the same time, Quentin Johnson's playing too well. Keenan Allen's playing too well. On top of that, maybe you see some more Arondé Gatson usage. We see him make an appearance this week, 7 targets on 26% of the snaps. I do think it should be noted that there's way more target competition now than we had anticipated coming into the season.
Yeah, and I mentioned it in yesterday's video in regards to Keenan Allen and, how he is not being used as much when the Chargers are winning games because he's not necessarily a 2 wide receiver set guy.
Yeah.
And the Chargers do have 6 pretty decent opponents coming up. 3 teams that don't have a win yet. 2 more teams that are dealing with like backup quarterback situations right now. So they should be winning a lot of these games, and that could result in a lot of Amari and Hampton game scripts and that type of thing. Really, again, it comes down to us. Again, you have Drake London in our flock league. I have Ladd McConkey in our flock league. So we are both managers of these players. I am worried 6 out of 10 for where I drafted Ladd McConkey. I don't think he is going to be a back end wide receiver 1, mid wide receiver 1 type of upside like I thought he was going to. I think that what you need to expect now from Ladd McConkey is somewhere between 14 and 17 fantasy points per game. 14 being, hey, Ladd has Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson a major factor all season. 17 meaning, okay, attrition sets in, Keenan Allen starts to play worse, Quentin Johnson's big plays dry up a little bit, and Ladd McConkey reestablishes himself as an alpha of this team. I lean towards maybe 15, 16, 17 points per game, but the 14, 13 point per game outcome exists.
Yeah, I mean, there is an outcome that exists where he's Zay Flowers from last year, where the film, the yak ability, the overall, peripherals look good, but the overall production just doesn't get there. And last year, for example, with Zay Flowers, we saw it was because, Mark Andrews had how much touchdown equity in that offense. It wasn't like Zay Flowers on an isolated level was playing bad enough to not produce. It was because there was so many factors in that offense and he didn't have the touchdown equity in that system. We could see that play out. Now, obviously, I mean, Lamar Jackson, 41 passing touchdowns last year, but we do expect the Chargers to throw the ball probably about 250 times more than what we expected from the Ravens last year. But there's just so much more target competition on this year's Chargers than last year's Ravens. So I kind of think that would be like the floor case scenario, about 13 points per game. Feel good on an isolated level that you got, a good football player, but you're left kind of wanting more. I mean, it's funny that he ended up being, that mid to back end second round pick, because it reminds me so much of Garrett Wilson of years past or Chris Olave of years past, kind of how we're feeling about Ladd McConkey 3 weeks in.
Yeah, again, I still think the scenario exists where this 6 out of 10 panic meter that I have on McConkey goes down to a 3 out of 10, 2 or 3 weeks down the road. But the scenario exists where he gets worse. And Keenan Allen continues to keep playing as well as he is.
Yeah, and I fully outlined the floor scenario. Like I'm saying, like this would be doomsday. Like you got probably a mid wide receiver 3. Like that is the absolute lowest I can see from Ladd. But more than likely, like you said, going to figure in that mid wide receiver 2 range. And for me, I would also be at about a 6, maybe a 6.5 if you're really concerned about the longevity of this core.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the title player of last week's video, which is Brian Thomas Jr., which is probably on a lot of 0-3 and 1-2 fantasy football teams right now. I cannot imagine that you guys are 3-0 with Brian Thomas Jr.
If you are 3-0 with Brian Thomas Jr., comment it down below because everybody that's watching right now needs to like your comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Wide receiver 56 in points per game is Brian Thomas Jr. right now. And frankly, is playing bad football.
He looks awful.
Everything is bad with Jacksonville right now. I've seen some stats that point into Trevor Lawrence being the problem with this offense. And it's funny because they're a 2-1 football team right now. They're not 3-0. They're 2-1 football team right now. But Brian Thomas Jr., just a 23% target share, 8.5 fantasy points per game. As a player, he's getting targeted like 13 and a half yards downfield, like good average depth of target here. But those like big plays and, oh my God, look how good this rookie is kind of plays that he had last year are just non-existent right now. He looks like he's scared of contact. He has this wrist injury that he's dealing with. De'Ami Brown's a bigger part of this offense than we were factoring in. Parker Washington had 11 targets last week, and Brenton Strange was heavily involved. So one of the common tropes of your offseason, Danny, was this is going to be the most consolidated target share in the league. Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter.
Quite the opposite right now.
It's been the total opposite this year.
Yeah, and I don't know. Is this like Freaky Friday right now? I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson going into this week had like that big performance against the Cowboys. Travis Hunter, I mean, I can't even say he's being used like Wan'Dale Robinson now because he got his snaps cut. Like, I don't know what is going on. I don't know. Maybe is it an adjustment period, new coach, like everybody's kind of learning the scheme. Like, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. What I do know, everybody in this fucking offense needs to play better. Otherwise, I'm going to be out a lot of money in best ball.
Yeah, BTJ, thankfully I wasn't super in on him at cost in best ball, but Travis Hunter I was quite in on, and on our shared account with Spicy, we were very in on him. Yeah. So yeah, BTJ, here's my, let's give the panic meter on BTJ. I'm at like a 7 or an 8. I'm just concerned that this guy is not the player that we saw in his rookie season. And for whatever reason, I'm not saying because he's not like we overestimated his talent or whatever, because like the yards per route run metrics, the separation, all that stuff was there for him as a rookie. I'm just worried that he's going to have a sophomore slump and this is going to continue all season.
Yeah, no, it's a very real possibility. On top of that, shouldn't even get much better this week. In fact, should potentially even get worse. We got a bad matchup. Jacksonville going to play the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco currently the 4th best defense in terms of EPA per play against the pass this year. And they are number 1 in terms of pass yards per game allowed. Like they are the single best defense at limiting opposing passing attacks. And the Jaguars passing attack has not looked good. This could look ugly. We could see the 49ers walk on Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, and I saw Computer Cowboy tweeted out PFF and all these other metrics composite pass blocking grades, and the Jags are 5th in the NFL. So their offensive line and their run game have looked a lot better under Liam Cohen, but the passing game has not. And it's been everybody's fault. It's the wide receiver's fault dropping passes. It's the quarterback's fault not making, not getting off of his first read and stuff. Like it, everything needs to get better, and I'm not sure it will.
You know what would help?
What's that?
You know what would help? Playing the number 2 overall pick more than 50% of the snaps on offense. That would help. That would fucking help.
That would help. Yeah. And I mean, you got to use him as a real receiver too. You can't just every time he's on the field, give him like a Mickey Mouse screen target. So
let him go line up. Sorry. I was just going to say, let him go line up on the outside and fucking beat people. I don't want to see these little Mickey Mouse, like under screens and drags. Like, yeah, we want those looks. We want those design looks. Go fucking let him play real wide receiver. That's why he went a Heisman.
Yeah, no, exactly. So BTJ, I'm at 7 or an 8, man. I'm actually scared. If I draft it, I did draft him in my home league. Thankfully, I traded him away before the week of the season even started. But I'd be worried, man. I'd be worried that you have a mid to back end wide receiver too for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility. Again, I think the talent level is there, but he just has the yips right now, man. Like he's dropping the ball and he's doing fucking shit he wasn't doing at the end of last year. Like if you had kind of flipped his seasons where the season he had as a rookie is what happened this year and how he's looking right now was his rookie year, that would have made more sense because we expected a raw prospect coming in. It's just when you see a superstar top 5, top 10 level real life NFL wide receiver as a rookie look this bad going into his sophomore year, like we got to figure it out, man. We got to dig deep down. We got to go, do some meditation, whatever you need to find, Brian.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I'm worried. If you guys have BTJ, I'd be concerned. And I would also be concerned if you have Marvin Harrison Jr. right now, because he's wide receiver 45 in points per game. One of the most egregious drops you'll ever see. Now, again, I've seen many people argue, that play, if Kyler Murray leads him, it's probably a touchdown and all that kind of stuff. Well, Kyler Murray isn't we have a lot of data on Kyler Murray right now. And Kyler Murray, we can even group into this conversation because a lot of you guys probably drafted Kyler Murray as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and he's not producing as that either. The whole Arizona Cardinals offense in passing game specifically right now is kind of a concern because Kyler Murray doesn't look like a great quarterback. Marvin Harrison doesn't look like a top 5 overall pick wide receiver. And if you are expecting, you drafted, let's say Marvin with an early 3rd round pick, mid 3rd round pick, something like that. You were expecting him to look a lot better in year 2 than he looked in year 1. He looks marginally better in year 2. He does not look a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say about this. Maybe we see some more passing volume now that James Conner's hurt. Trey Benson obviously able on 3rd down, able in the receiving game. Maybe we do see this kind of open up because when I'm looking at Kyler Murray, it's not like the volume per se is actually bad. About 30 attempts per game. Like, yeah, that's low volume, but realistically, we see teams like the Eagles have volume concerns, 22, 23, 24 attempts. Like, no, the problem with Kyler Murray is that you're getting 30 attempts per game, but it's translated into 180 passing yards per game. 180 pass yards per game. I don't care who you are. You are not going to be able to suffice because guess what, Corey? For Marvin to live up to his expectations, how many yards per game do you think that would need to be? Probably about 75, 80 yards per game.
Yeah, like 6.1 yards per attempt and 180 yards per game. Like, we're talking about like what Jake Browning would be like producing. You know what I mean? Like, and Jake Browning actually produced better when he was a starter in 2023. So yeah, like Kyler, like I'm starting to get annoyed of this guy like a little bit. Like I'm starting to feel like if this season goes the way that it's trending right now, the Cardinals will be looking for a new quarterback and probably trading Kyler to a QB needy team or something like that. Because the way that Harrison's playing, the way that Kyler's playing, the only real hope here is that everybody just starts to, like, the tide rises. Maybe Benson gives them a little bit more juice in the run game. Maybe Trey McBride just absolutely dominates. Like, I know the Seahawks on Thursday night have one of the worst tight end defenses in the league. Yeah. McBride can just absolutely move the chains by himself. And Harrison, if he's playing a number 2 complementary kind of role to McBride, can start to play better. But again, if you drafted Marvin Harrison with the indication that, or the inclination that he was going to break out and be a top 10 receiver in fantasy this year, my panic level's at a 7 or an 8. I think you are getting 2 to 3 more fantasy points per game than you got out of him last year, which makes him a high-end wide receiver 3, mid to low-end wide receiver 2.
You're drafting this guy as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, top 15 level ADP, early to mid 3rd round pick. At that expectation, I'm at a 10. Because at that expectation, you're thinking, yeah, Trey McBride, he's a great player. But Marvin Harrison Jr. was the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. was one of the best wide receiver prospects we've ever seen. Marvin Harrison Jr. has a Hall of Fame father, and maybe he just naturally gets better in year 2. I think our answer, he hasn't got better. And if that's the case, and we're hoping he could potentially be the number 2 in this offense to Trey McBride, that's not what we drafted him to be. We drafted him with the opportunity. He would be at very worst the 1B in this offense, and there is no possible chance, based off how he has played to start this year, he even remotely takes over that number 1 job from Trey McBride, or even at least makes it a conversation.
Yeah, and the hard thing, too, is similar to what I said about Jacksonville. Cardinals' offensive line's playing well as pass protection unit. Drew Petzig's calling up a good game. The quarterback and the top receiver are not playing to the level they can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's that simple. You guys know my thoughts on Marvin Harrison Jr. I love drafting him in the 3rd round this year. I thought, hey, maybe we are getting that Ohio State Marvin Harrison Jr. that we said would be an eventuality to have a gold jacket one day. That hasn't happened.
Drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. this year was like placing a $5 13-leg parlay. It felt so good dreaming about what you could get, but we didn't really stop and ask the question, like, what is actually the most likely outcome here?
And then leg 3 hits and you're like, shit. Like, I didn't think that this upset would happen. It's like, yeah, maybe you should have, because that's why it's priced like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So Marvin, again, I'm worried. BTJ, I'm worried. T. Higgins. Yeah. This is the first guy of the video where I'm like, I'm buying low. Honestly, it's not because I don't think you should be worried about T. Higgins based on where you drafted him. I think that everybody adjusted their expectations when Burrow got injured. When Joe Burrow got injured, again, it sucks to suck. You drafted a guy at the top of the 3rd round needing Joe Burrow to be on the field because he was only a top 5 fantasy receiver in points per game with Joe Burrow on the field playing at a borderline MVP level. You needed an MVP level quarterback for a number 2 receiver to finish as high as T. Higgins finished last year. He's wide receiver 63 in points per game. And Danny, I've gotten questions asking if people should drop him. So I think the expectation and the level of confidence in T. Higgins right now is so in the toilet that you can probably just buy low on this guy. And you're probably getting a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2, but he is actually not being priced that way in most people's minds.
If that's the case, if people are ready to give up, should I drop him? Like, should I trade him for fucking Wan'Dale Robinson? Maybe people are fucking
Cam Scattaboo or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Scottaboo's a little bit more reasonable, but I know what you mean. Yeah, like if that's the type of offer range you're getting in the running back 30, wide receiver 30 range. Okay, yeah, at that point you want to take T. Higgins, but it's not like I'm buying him for mid wide receiver 2 or higher prices. The sweet spot for me is if you can get him around, wide receiver 25, wide receiver 28 level price,
26 for me in my rankings.
I'd be willing to buy it around that price because I do agree with you that Jake Browning, for the most part in the sample at the end of 2023, looked a lot better than this. The Vikings are the type of defense that if you're an inexperienced quarterback, man, they're going to have you seeing boogeyman, man. You're going to be looking under your bed. You're going to be looking in your closet. You don't know where the fuck the blitz is coming from, but it's coming. And they'll come when you least expect it. You don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, again, Higgins, much like I said with Jamar Chase in yesterday's video, I just think Jake Browning's a much better quarterback than he showed against the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. And it's not that I think T. Higgins will have top 5 upside like he had in 2024. He definitely will not, as long as Joe Burrow is out of the lineup. But I do think you can rely on him for somewhere between 13 to 16 fantasy points per game. By the end of the season, we're going to look back and be like, oh yeah, T. Higgins finished wide receiver 23 in points per game with 14.5.
Yeah, and in terms of my panic level, if you're comparing to where you drafted him, obviously that's going to be like a 9 or a 10. Joe Burrow is very significant. You're not getting access to that top 5 overall ceiling like last year. I get that. If you're adjusting your expectations based off Joe Burrow being out, like you, I'm probably at about maybe a 2, 3, just because I was maybe a little bit more confident in Browning going into that game. And
I'd say I'm at a 4.
Yeah. Well, like we do have games, for example, that maybe Green Bay has that type of effect on him. Maybe they play Denver this week. Maybe they have that type of effect. We do know that maybe aggressive defenses might be able to get under Jake Browning's skin. Maybe that's not the best word for it, but maybe get after him is the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, for sure. This next guy that we're going to talk about, we actually have some like kind of breaking-ish news while we're talking about him. Terry McLaurin, Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin, is visiting a core muscle injury specialist, Dr. William Myers, to evaluate his quad injury. So the report right now is that he's probably going to miss this week. So that was the report that came out. I think it was yesterday that came out. Now this sounds like core muscle injuries. I don't know if you guys are scarred from having Odell Beckham Jr. or I'm trying to think of guys in years past that have Kenneth Walker have had this in injury history past. This doesn't sound like a good injury, man. And Terry McLaurin, if you drafted him in the 3rd round or the 4th round or whatever, and Jaden Daniels is currently banged up as well. Deebo Samuel, obviously a much larger part of the offense than that Terry McLaurin ADP would have indicated. I mean, based on his ADP, 10 out of 10. Based on his ADP. Like, I'm 10 out of 10 in like worried about Terry McLaurin from multiple angles. And based right now, adjusting expectation after Deebo kind of had his little couple weeks, I would say I'm still at like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, I think this is the bust of the first 4 rounds. I think when you're looking at the situation for Terry McLaurin, everything negative in his case coming into this year has materialized. Like what is genuinely like the positive light we can think about McLaurin moving forward, other than Jaden Daniels comes back healthy and looks like one of the 3 best quarterbacks on earth?
He probably catches more touchdowns like he did last year, I guess would be the positive case. I think you and I, it's funny because we did a video called The Worst Pick in Every Round before the season, and Terry McLaurin was the worst pick in the 4th round for us when we talked about it. Yeah. I'd be very concerned. If you can sell this dude on name value before people really catch up to the news, like I would sell Terry McLaurin right now for
where's he
Waddle, for Jacoby Myers, for I would even be willing to take the risk on a guy like Xavier Worthy at this point in time.
I would take Travis
using
Hunter
Terry
over
McLaurin as the bait in that deal.
I would take Travis Hunter over him and sleep like a baby.
Okay, Travis Hunter is
I would
bad, so I probably
I know I get that. That's how concerned I am about Terry McLaurin is what I'm saying. He's like a wide receiver 40 for me the rest of the season.
Yeah. Again, he's wide receiver 38 for me, but like if you're talking DJ Moore, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Jacoby Myers, like yeah, dude, I'd probably take those guys over Terry McLaurin right now, especially given that this injury, by the sounds of it, could result in him getting placed on IR. We don't have any news in that regard right now. We're recording this Wednesday afternoon, but there might be more news that trickles out as this video is going live.
Wide receiver 43 for me.
Yeah, this is sketchy, man. Like you could probably trade Terry McLaurin right now just based up purely off name value.
Matthew Golden.
I was literally just about to say for Matthew Golden plus a piece.
If you can get Matthew Golden, you do it absolutely. I mean, Matthew Golden is going to have an ascending role. Matthew Golden's actually healthy. Like, go and trade for Matthew Golden, guys. That's what we're saying.
Where we're at with it. And you know what? You brought up Travis Hunter. We should probably talk about him too.
We should.
Travis Hunter, his role is got me at about a 7 or an 8 out of 10 panic wise. Because if it's going to keep changing like this, it's not because I'm like, okay, it's going to be unpredictable. Some weeks it's going to be 60%, some weeks it's going to be 80% of the routes. I'm actually the most concerned about his role for this reason. How is he going to learn to run non-Mickey Mouse routes if he's constantly changing his role?
It's got to come to the point where they are in film session and they are like, you know what? Our offense needs the help. Parker Washington, we've targeted him 11 times. The guy isn't making plays on those targets. Brian Thomas Jr., we just talked about him. He isn't making plays on his fucking targets. We got to get a better usage out of our number 2 overall pick. We have Liam Cohn coming over. We've seen what he's done with slot wide receivers before. We have to prioritize getting our biggest investment on the team outside of maybe Trevor Lawrence a chance to actually shine. And the only way to do that, man, I honestly say it at this point, the defense is playing well. The offense needs help. Go and let him play fucking 85% of the offensive snaps and just see what happens. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm from a fantasy lens. But I'm just saying from a real-life utilization standpoint, your defense is playing well. Your offense isn't. Find a way to figure that out.
Yeah, and also your third best receiver is hurt too. De'Ami Brown left Sunday's game with an injury. So if that factors in, then maybe you play Hunter more on offense. But, I mean, right now, again, relative to expectation, we drafted Travis Hunter as a top 25 to 30-ish receiver in ADP. You had him ranked higher than that.
Top 20.
In ADP, 25 to 30-ish. I mean, my panic level's at an 8, 9 out of 10. I really do think that, remember what we said about him at first? He could be like Jaden Reed. That's kind of what his ceiling case is looking like right now until this stuff corrects itself.
Yeah, and again, this is not a talent issue. This is not we think he's just suddenly a way worse football player. It's about how Jacksonville utilizes him.
He does look like a rookie, though, too, for what it's worth.
He's making mental mistakes. Who isn't in that wide receiver core right now? They all fucking suck. Like, that's really my point on it. Like, Parker Washington is having balls clank off his hands. Brian Thomas Jr., again, I don't have to get into. Like, everybody's making mistakes, so let the rookie go out there and make them as well.
Yeah. So that's why, like, Travis Hunter, again, obviously, I'm sure you guys have bags of Travis Hunter. Like, we talked up Travis Hunter more than many other people. From a dynasty lens, I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. I'd be actually buying low on Travis Hunter from a dynasty lens. But from a redraft lens, like, he's unstartable right now. You cannot put him in your lineup.
Wan'Dale Robinson types over him in your lineup. Even if you have, like, it was funny because we initially clowned on this when we saw it in the live stream, but it ended up materializing extremely well. If Xavier Worthy's out again this week, I would perfectly feel comfortable putting Tyquan Thornton over him in my lineup this week. Yeah,
and even like rest of season, man, like Chris Godwin has a chance to come back this week. I would rather have Chris Godwin for the rest of the year. Michael Pittman Jr. Performing pretty well right now. Jordan Addison coming back from his suspension right now. Like, I feel like that's the territory. And even after those guys is where I have him ranked at 43 for the rest of the season. Again, he's a stash. Tack him on to the end of trades. If you're looking for like a 2 for 2, maybe he's available on your waiver wire because we've done team reviews where he was on the waiver wire. Definitely check some of that stuff out. But at the same time, he's unstartable for the foreseeable future right now.
Yeah, 100%. But that's our thoughts on Travis Hunter. If you do have him, I would say don't sell low. Just stash him. See what you have because realistically,
don't drop him either.
That's the other thing too. Just don't do anything rash. Because he's the type of player where if somebody else is able to pick him up for free, he can eventually win them that league. So we'll go on to running back. The first selected in terms of ADP, Ashton Jeanty. I would say if it's not at least an 8, I would be shocked because the offensive line just cannot block up front. The stat that I brought up to you, Corey, Ian Hardis tweeted this out. Ashton Jeanty, 101% of his yearly yards have come after contact. He has 146 yards after contact this year. He has 144 total rushing yards, meaning that the offensive line in front of him has blocked for -2 yards up front.
Yeah, and among running backs with at least 12 carries this year, Ashton Jeanty ranks 40th out of 59 in PFF grade. He has 3.1 yards per carry on the season, and he only has 3.11 yards after contact per attempt. Now, Ashton Jeanty is a rookie, and rookies generally are going to not look great in September versus what they're going to look like in December. So Do I lean still more so on the side of buying low on Ashton Jeanty? Yeah, because I've actually seen some trades where like people are trading Cam Scattaboo for this guy or whatever, Jordan Mason for Ashton Jeanty plus or whatever. Like, yeah, I would be trading for him in that situation. But we do have to temper our expectations because part of where we were drafting this dude was that he was this all-world talent that it wasn't going to matter for, and he was getting the workload. And he's still getting the workload. He's getting all the work that he can handle and that kind of thing. But if it's going to be this inefficient, if it's going to be this bad, he's basically just one of these guys that is just a volume play at this point.
Yeah, and unfortunately, given just how bad they're blocking up front, like that's exactly what he's been. It has to be at least an 8 because the where you were drafting Ashton Jeanty was ahead of Derrick Henry.
Or a second overall if you're people in my home league.
Oh, God, how is he doing?
He's probably, there's a reason that Riley is the buffoon league mate. If anybody watched that vlog, you know that like he named his team buffoon league mate because he's precisely who I'm referring to when we say buffoon league mates in videos. Because he has the worst winning record in our league since its inception. So he's the taco.
What's his record?
He took Jeanty at number 2 because he loved Jeanty.
Is he 0-3?
He's 0-3. Yeah.
Okay.
Most points hung on him by far too. Like the league, everybody's team's going off against him.
Didn't he also give up Bowers and fucking Bucky Irving for Jefferson?
He did.
So that was the same guy. That makes sense why he's 0-3.
Yeah, no, he's not in great shape right now. But if you have Ashton Jeanty and you're 0-3, you're kind of stuck with him. Unfortunately, you can't really sell him at this point in time because he's on such a low level. If you are 3-0 and 2-1 watching this video, then I would suggest going to send some offers for Jeanty because there's a good chance that his worst games of the season have been absorbed by the person who drafted him.
What's the hope here that he can be like last year's Kyron?
Yeah, last year's Kyron was what, RB 11 in points per game, something like that.
Around there, yeah, around there.
Like Jeanty right now for me is my running back 15 rest of season. I have him behind Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, Amarian Hampton. He's in a tier with Alvin Kamara right now where you can make the argument another week or two goes by and he's behind him too. And Chuba Hubbard and Trey Benson, if he looks great, Quinshon Judkins keeps playing well. Like there's people out there that could maybe argue that you would rather have Quinshon Judkins rest of the season than Ashton Jeanty.
Well, I mean, let's just say Trey Benson on Thursday night looks great, gets 75+% of the snaps, handles 21 opportunities.
If I see that, Trey Benson will be a top 15 running back for me rest of the season and absolutely will be ahead of Jeanty.
Well, that's what I was asking. I have Benson at 16 right now, and I think if that happened, I think I would have him closer to like the 10, 11, 12 area.
Yeah. Like we say stuff like, oh, Benson would be an RB1 if James Conner goes down. Well, as soon as he gets that usage, like, yeah, absolutely, he's going to be an RB1.
Yep. And who knows? Maybe one of us can get him in the flock league.
Yeah, for sure. So Chase Brown, again, very similar to T. Higgins. Are you panicked based on the newfound expectations that Joe Burrow is gone? And my answer would be I'm about a 4 or 5 out of 10 there because Chase Brown doesn't look great. Like, admittedly, he looks pretty bad. But I think better days are ahead for him as a target usage out of the backfield and efficiency-wise on the ground because he is by far the least efficient running back in the league right now.
It's not even close. And I'm probably, even with the newfound expectation, I'm at about a 7, honestly. The Bengals cannot block up front. And Chase Brown is he an elite talent? No. He's probably about an average talent. And I think we're finding it out right now. If he was Saquon Barkley or if he was, Jonathan Taylor, if he was someone like that, we would have learned by now. It wouldn't have been 1.6 yards per carry. The fact that it is where it's at, even despite the terrible situation, at least we see flashes with a guy like Ashton Jeanty. It's terrible blocking up front, but he's giving you the yards after contact. We're not even really seeing that with Chase Brown right now. And if we can't rely upon 22 opportunities, 4 or 5 targets, scoring equity in a top 5 offense, like I think we're on the road towards a back-end RB2 season.
Yeah, I'm actually going to change my answer because I didn't realize he only played 56% of the snaps this past week too. And Samaje Perine is injured.
It was a blowout, to be fair. It was a blowout.
Yeah, and it was a blowout, like you said. But Taj Brooks was active for the first time this week. And Taj Brooks, if there's anything Taj Brooks can do, it's probably get you 4 yards when you need 4 yards. So I'd be a little bit worried that if Chase Brown continues to be inefficient on the ground, he'll start to lose a little bit of that ground workload. And you got to also remember too that Chase Brown in week 9 onward last year had fresh legs. And when he's getting workhorse touches, he's going up against battered defenses that have played 8 weeks of football, 9 weeks of football, and defensive linemen and linebackers that are probably not willing to tackle a guy out in space who's got fresh legs. So we've seen this before. Kenyon Drake comes to mind, for example, where a guy has a great back half of the season and gets overdrafted as a result. Now, again, we might be having a completely different conversation right now if Joe Burrow were healthy. But even if Joe Burrow were healthy, I do think Chase Brown would currently be inefficient on the ground.
He'd be more efficient, but I mean, even when Joe Burrow was healthy, he had 21 carries for 43 yards against Cleveland in week 1. I mean, what we've learned about Cleveland is they might just really be that good in terms of against the run. But also, is this a guy that probably would have been on his way towards averaging 4.4 yards per carry like last year? Like, no, like I think Chase Brown, we were probably hoping this year, based off how he even looked in week 1, can he crack 4.2? Can he crack 4.1? Can he crack even above 4 yards per carry? Because we just haven't seen it from the Bengals front offensive line.
Who would you rather have between Jeanty and Chase Brown rest of the season?
Jeanty.
Would it be like the same tier, or would it be
pretty seismic difference?
Yeah. Okay. Because at least with Jeanty, you're kind of hoping that he kind of corrects itself and the O-line maybe gels together and Chip Kelly can maybe fix the blocking scheme and that kind of, I tend to agree with you. I was just curious.
I got a grosser question for you. And obviously this is totally dependent on how long the other guy is out. Jordan Mason or Chase Brown?
Well, I mean, it's not even close in the short term. Who would you rather have? It's definitely Jordan Mason. But
that's what I'm saying.
Jones is out only 3 more games. I would rather have Chase Brown.
So that's why I'm asking.
If I was 0-3, I would rather have Jordan Mason.
So for that reason alone, they are back-to-back in my rankings. So I think you can make a genuine case with Jordan Mason. You know, Aaron Jones, older running back, hamstring injury, predisposed to this in the past. Even if he comes back, does he get eased in the first few games? Does this linger on for 6 games? I think because of that, you can make a strong argument with Jordan Mason. Because if I'm getting a, let's just say, standalone value when Jones is back, RB3 level projection with RB1 implied upside anytime Jones misses, like, I might have convinced myself to move Mason over him.
Yeah, I mean, I have Chase Brown at RB21 right now. I have Javonte Williams, Quinshon Judkins, Trey Benson, Chuba Hubbard, Jeanty, and Kamara and Etienne and those guys immediately ahead of him. And then right behind Chase Brown, like who I would rather have. I mean, this could change this week, but I have Trevion Henderson 1 spot behind him. The second we see Trevion get a workload, he's going to be skyrocketing up our rankings, 50. Obviously. But for now, until we see it, I do have Chase Brown 1 spot higher. But yeah, it's getting bleak for Chase Brown. I would say, like, relative to expectations of where you drafted him, I mean, you have to be at a 10 out of 10. Like, you have to be. But even after the Joe Burrow injury, despite the Vikings, like, even though we're giving a little bit of grace to the Vikings matchup for Jamar Chase, for example, in yesterday's video, you still got to be at like probably a 7 or an 8 out of 10 on Chase Brown.
Absolutely. I agree there. Breece Hall is going to be the next guy here. I know what your answer is going to be. Mine, I'll say specifically because we drafted him with the inference that this will be a strong ground attack. We were getting, you know, a much improved offensive line up front, and Justin Fields would be healthy. I think because Justin Fields is hurt and we just simply aren't seeing the offense look good overall, I think we kind of have to put it about at least a 3. But I would argue that with Breece Hall, you're getting the receiving usage, you're getting the upside once Fields comes back for the offense to be better. My expectation is probably about a mid-range running back too. So we were drafting them like that. 3 would be about where I'm at.
Yeah. Again, I have him ranked currently as my RB13 rest of season. I've liked the workload. Justin Fields has a concussion. It's not something that usually lingers very long. He'll probably be back this week if I had to guess. And Breece Hall is carving out a nice receiving role. He has 29% targets per route run last week against the Buccaneers, with Tyrod Taylor 23% on the season, 14% target share overall. I kind of just think he's almost like the cheaper version of Devon Achane, where Devon Achane is really just getting there on the back of receiving volume, even though his quarterback isn't playing well and the offense doesn't look great. I think Breece Hall is kind of like the cheaper version of that. So that's where I'm at. I'm just kind of in full PPR. You got to respect a 14% target share, in my opinion. You got to respect the guy who goes out there and has 6 targets against the Buccaneers. That gives you such like a high floor. And I do think that the week 2 offense with Justin Fields won't be the rest of the season offense with Justin Fields. I don't think it'll be the week 1 offense against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I do think it'll probably be somewhere in between that. And I think Fields can move the ball at least.
Yeah, I mean, the concern here is he has no touchdowns on the year. He is losing work to Braylon Allen. Isaiah Davis, I don't believe had a touch in week 3, but he did play a couple snaps in the 3rd down and long game. Yeah, he's at about 10 points per game right now. I think healthy guess would be he's probably about a 14 to 15 point per game player.
Yeah, I mean, that's about what he was last year. And I think he can maybe get a point or 2 higher than that. He does have the only inside the 5 carry on the season. So it's not like Braylon Allen completely sniped him in that regard. He did snipe him in the red zone once, but he didn't snipe him inside the 5, which is good for Breece Hall. Like I said, we'll see. We might not. I'm kind of just on a wait and see approach with Breece Hall right now. I want to reevaluate when Justin Fields is healthy. I want to see what this offense looks like a little bit more in depth at that point in time. So for me on Breece Hall, I'm at about a 3, I would say, but it could get to a 4 or a 5 if we see the offense really bumble and stumble over the next couple of games. Good news is offensive line's getting some holes for him and he can catch the ball.
I have him at RB19 rest of the season, so a little bit lower than you do. Jeanty, for example, is going to be above him. I'm assuming maybe that's a close one for you. You probably have Breece.
There are a couple spots apart for me. I would rather have Breece Hall.
I would take Jeanty, just much better stranglehold of the work for what's also going to be a bad offense. Chuba Hubbard, I have ranked higher. He's just getting all the work under the sun for the Panthers right now, and I do think the Carolina Panthers project to be better moving forward. Trayvon Henderson, the upside shot, again, I think he's going to get the workload this week, so that's why I have him aggressively, but you kind of make a reference to it that if Henderson gets the workload, you will adjust after the fact, so I think that's fair. Trey Benson, similar thing to Trayvon Henderson. Kyron Williams right now, really like how the Rams offense is looking. He was more efficient even despite a bad matchup against the Eagles.
Yeah, again, the last rebuttal I have on Breece is that he's 5th in targets per route run and 8th in overall
100%.
target share at running back. So even if the offense is bad, Jeanty does not have an 8th highest target share at his position. Chuba Hubbard does not have a super, super high target share, although he is getting some target work out of the backfield. So again, I just think that Breece, the player who can break off long runs and has looked good so far this year, and the offense targeting him a lot is the only, that's how he gets there. That's how he gets 17, 18 points per game. Because I do still think that's within the range of outcomes for him, even if the more likely scenario is 14, 15 points per game.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here. RJ Harvey is the next running back that we have listed here. Currently the RB2 in terms of PPR points per game. And the elephant in the room is that J.K. Dobbins is the starting running back for this team, at least for now.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes me happy as a lifelong J.K. Dobbins truther. And part of why I'm concerned about trading for RJ Harvey, because there's currently a league where I'm actively sending out offers involving RJ Harvey in them. But part of my thinking about RJ Harvey is that his snaps have actually declined in 3 straight weeks. And Dobbins' snaps have increased all the way up to 69% last week in a game script where they did kind of have to throw the ball and he had 55% of the team's routes. One thing you could absolutely argue is, hey, I'm investing in RJ Harvey for a double outcome, which is that he starts playing better. And because he was a 2nd round pick, he takes over the role, which I think is getting less and less likely by the week for what it's worth. Or J.K. Dobbins has never stayed healthy. And I'm going after RJ Harvey because the second J.K. Dobbins goes out with any kind of nagging injury, he's not getting his job back, and RJ Harvey will take over that job. My last thing with RJ Harvey is this. It's not like he's playing exceptional. You know what I mean? Like if he was just like playing as good as Henderson, for example, is playing right now, like he's ranked 47th on PFF and rush grade. He's averaging 6.2 yards per carry, but a lot of that came on that one carry where he like broke off like a 50-yard run or whatever. So my thing with RJ Harvey is that like I think he absolutely needs a Dobbins injury to go down. So if I would, or for him to take over the role, so I would say in regards to why you drafted him, 6 or 7 out of 10 is what my panic meter is.
Yeah, I would be a little bit lower than that. I still think a little bit stronger than you do that he can just wrestle the RB1 job. Again, I'm leaning Dobbins there. That's why I'm still at about probably a 4 is where I said. I might have said a 3. I'd probably be at about a 4. Just because it's not like we haven't seen this from Dobbins before. I mean, last year, for example, first few games, 10 carries, 135 yards and a touchdown, 17 carries, 131 yards and a touchdown. Like we've seen him be efficient to start the years. My question in J.K. Dobbins is the minute that he has a little bit of a hamstring pull or a little bit of a knee tweak, like, is he really the type of back that's going to come back from that and be efficient? He hasn't really proven that to me.
Yeah, he's kind of like Keenan Allen in the sense that attrition can take over for him because he's a September god. He's great in September. He's really good in September because the attrition of the season hasn't really taken hold for him, especially if the Broncos start going, oh, well, he's our RB1. Let's give him 20 touches a game. It's like that's when stuff will probably go haywire for J.K. Dobbins. And that's when he could start losing some work or getting less efficient and that kind of thing. So just a combination of if you believe the trend will start going, Harvey plays better, starts getting more work, and Dobbins plays maybe hurt and starts getting less work, then you should be really in on buying RJ Harvey right now. But if you're of the opinion like me, where it's like, it might take till like week 9 or week 10 before we actually see this with Harvey. If you thought 5th round, 6th round pick that you spent on Harvey, it was going to be week 3, week 4, I think you got to push that timeline back a little bit until Dobbins really starts dealing with something.
I would say so. Again, very, very interesting stash. One of the best stashes you can have right now. But if you drafted a stash in round 6, is it really a stash or is it more so, I would say, a benching?
Yeah, you're pretty much, you can't start him at this point in time, especially not on the snap share that he's been getting as of late. So Another guy that you can't start is Isiah Pacheco, who we might have to you're at a 10 out of 10 on him. Okay, let me just point to the only reason for optimism, because there's not many. Let's put it that way. There's not many reasons for optimism.
What's your number, by the way, before you say, what's your number out of 10?
8.
Okay.
Because the reason I say 8 is that most people are dropping Isiah Pacheco and he's available on waiver wires. So I say 8 because he's available for basically nothing right now. Relative to the 6th round draft capital or the 7th round draft capital that you spent on Pacheco, I am also at a 10. I just think that he's so easily acquirable, very little, waiver budget right now, or nothing in a trade, that I think I'm at an 8 out of 10. 60% and 59% of the snaps the last 2 weeks is good. 53% and 45% of the carries the last 2 weeks, not bad. But he's got to play much better than he's playing, because he's playing terribly. And the Chiefs offense has to play much better than it's playing right now. Maybe by week 7, close your eyes and imagine a world where Rashee Rice is doing his thing. Xavier Worthy's back healthy. Does Isiah Pacheco look better in that situation? I think he probably does. But the question is, what does that look like? Is that a startable fantasy asset? Is that 12, 13, 14 fantasy points per game? Best case scenario, that's, I think, maybe possible. Or is that he's in a 50-50 timeshare with Kareem Hunt and he's still like unstartable despite the Chiefs offense playing better?
3.68 yards per carry. The offense throws the football when they're in the red zone. What's really the touchdown equity he has if he's not giving you those long touchdowns anymore? Like, I'm on the verge of it. I think he needs to be rostered, but I'm not 100% sure. And if that's the answer that I have for a guy that probably went in the 5th or 6th round in the majority of leagues, it has to be a 10. Like, it has to be a 10. I'm not even convinced that this guy's rosterable. Yeah,
he's a bench stash who you drafted in the 5th or 6th round. So it's an 8 to 10 for sure. Somewhere you're very panicked on him. He's unstartable right now. He's against the Ravens this week. They're a decent matchup, but you know what? The Giants were a great matchup. So, and he didn't perform against them. So I don't feel great about Isiah Pacheco at this point. And also too, like, the Chiefs offense is kind of abandoning the run because they can't run. So I do think that if Pacheco were to start playing better, they would actually commit to the run a little bit more. But because they don't have Worthy out there, because they don't have Rice out there, the teams are kind of just loading it up to stop the run and not really worried about the deep shot right now. So I'm quite worried about Isiah Pacheco. He's not droppable, but he's not startable.
Yep, for sure. We can go to the onesies, though. There's one onesie each, one quarterback, one tight end on this list. I will say Bo Nix, quarterback 20 with 14.5 points per game. The efficiency as a passer just really hasn't been there with Bo Nix, and I think that's the big problem. If we actually look at his rushing, let me take a look. What are we looking at here? 18 rushing yards, 20 rushing yards, 33 rushing yards in the last 3 games. He's kind of being touted to be a guy that maybe can you get 35 rushing yards per game, possibly 40. We did see the splits last year. Once he started to run, he kept running. We were hoping that maybe that would continue. If you're getting a 450-yard rushing mark along with maybe 4,000 yards passing, that was the way that Bo Nix really hit. And he's kind of hitting that sophomore slump. We mentioned it with a couple of their guys like Mcconkey, Jaden Daniels a little bit. I almost said McDaniels, by the way. Shout out the NBA. Jaden Daniels a little bit. I mean, we can talk about a bunch of sophomores right now. Brian Thomas Jr., for example, that are slumping right now. Bo Nix is absolutely in that group. So for that reason, because people were drafting him, quarterback 7, quarterback 8 off the board, almost about a tier higher than, the Caleb Williams, the Drake Mays, guys like that. Because of that expectation alone, I think it has to be at about an 8. But if you're saying, well, I'm just expecting him to be a lone quarterback 1 streaming option, I think if that's the expectation, I'm not worried about him. But given the draft capital you invested, you took him in the 7th round, for example, I'd feel horrible.
Yeah, I mean, he was the QB7 in points per game with 19.4 fantasy points last year, and he's 5 fantasy points worse than that through 3 games right now. So I would say that the expectation you had was probably that he would get better as a sophomore, not get worse. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's got to be at about a 7 or an 8 because he is now, like you just made reference to, a streaming quarterback. He's not an every week starter anymore. Like he should have been if you drafted him in the 7th or 8th round.
Like he had that great game against the Colts, but like realistically here, if you started him against Tennessee or LA, you probably lost your matchup.
Oh yeah, probably. So yeah, I mean, Bo Nix, QB 20 in points per game right now. Could he get back up to QB 12, QB 11 or something like that? I think that's got to be the new ceiling for him because before you probably thought, like I did, for example, coming into the season, there's a world where this dude finishes the top 3 fantasy quarterback. And the Franklin breakout is kind of nice. And the Sutton is still doing his thing. It's kind of nice. Ingram's been absolutely useless and the run game's been efficient. So they haven't really needed Bo Nix to run the ball as much. He actually is scrambling at about the same rate that he was scrambling last year, 7% last year, 7% now. And then he is designed rush attempts are actually up 13% so far this year and 7% last year. So the rushing should maybe get a little better, especially in the red zone if he can punch in some touchdowns or whatever. But for now, you got to treat him as what he is, which is a streaming quarterback.
Yeah, and same thing for Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta was a guy that was probably, the tight end 4, tight end 5 in terms of ADP this year. Right after, the George Kittle, the Trey McBride, the Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta was the next tight end off the board. And Sam Laporta simply just hasn't looked good, man. Like the last couple of weeks, he hasn't been able to perform. Obviously, we saw what he's able to do in week 1. What do you make of Laporta?
Yeah, Laporta's hard to figure out because he was tight end 8 in points per game last season. And a large part of that was because he didn't play well at the beginning of the season. Then he kind of dealt with some injuries. And then when he came back, he was better. But Jameson Williams is there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is there. This offense still runs through Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Sam Laporta is a streaming tight end masquerading as an every week starter because of what he did as a rookie and because of where you had to draft him. But he shouldn't really be treated any differently than the following people: Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, Jawan Johnson, even.
Dude, I mean, let me ask you right now, like, if you had to take a tight end rest of the season, there is no possibility you can take him over Jake Ferguson. You can't.
He's not in that tier with Warren and Kraft and Kittle anymore for me. Like, he definitely can't be. But I do still have him as the first guy in the B tier, which is my tight end 6 rest of the season. And Jake Ferguson is right behind him. Now,
I think you need to switch that. I have Ferguson at 6, and I actually have him in that tier.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. The one thing that gives you a little bit of, you feel good going to bed at night is that he does play for the Detroit Lions, and they're going to be implied for 25 plus points every single week. And even though St. Brown's been an absolute monster and Jameson Williams has been pretty solid so far this year, eventually you're going to get some games where Sam Laporta gets those touches. But I will say, Sam Laporta, like, there's been matchups that matter videos that I've done throughout this season where he had the best matchup on the field. Like, for example, this past week against the Baltimore Ravens, they were better against wide receivers than they were against tight ends. In week 1, they were better against tight ends than they were against wide receivers. So you should feel pretty good about starting him generally, but you can't feel comfortable that he's in every week, got to have it every single game he's in your lineup.
So Sam Laporta on the season has 3 more targets than Jake Ferguson had in week 3, by the way.
Yeah, that's very reasonable.
It's
79% of the routes is good. 18% of the targets is good, but it's not great. It's good.
Yeah. It's solid. Yeah. Like, and straight up, I mean, we have so many scoring options on Detroit. You have David Montgomery ripping 12 carries, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. We know what Jahmyr Gibbs represents. And Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't even been efficient, but Jahmyr Gibbs is being fed the football. Could you imagine? There might even be less meat left on the bone if we start seeing some more efficiency from Gibbs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, I said after week 1, maybe we'd see a more distributed target situation, because at that point, Laporta had the 9 targets. Jameson Williams had his targets. Amon-Ra only 14% of the targets, but that's very much corrected itself in the last 2 games. Amon-Ra St. Brown is reestablished as that clear number 1 option in this offense. And because of that, everybody else has to take a big hit.
Yeah, one more game of Dalton Kincaid getting 30% targets per route run, and I'll rank him over Laporta. You know what I mean? Like, one more game of Mark Andrews looking like he looked like on Monday night, and I'll rank him over Sam Laporta.
Call me crazy. Colston Loveland comes out healthy, and he looks like he did in the first quarter for a full game. I'm ranking him above Sam Laporta. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do the Army guy meme in that conversation that we just had. Colston Loveland has no business being in this discussion, but...
All I'm saying, though, is if he plays one full game like he did in week one, the first quarter against the Cowboys, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into copium territory of this video, but he looked good. I'll give you that. And he screwed up my bet, so I'm still mad at him. But yeah, if you guys made it to the end of this video, we went kind of just, again, we talked through this stuff. Like, if you noticed at the beginning of our Chase Brown discussion, I seemed higher on him than I am now. Like, it's important to talk about this stuff and go through what do we actually expect from these players, not just where do we draft them and what offenses do they play for and stuff. You got to factor in everything. How is their situation look? How are they playing? What is their workload? That kind of thing. So hopefully we talked you guys off the ledge on some of these guys, but unfortunately for Drake London managers, we were a little bit worried. Ladd McConkey managers, a little bit worried. Brian Thomas Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr. managers, we are quite worried about those players. Chase Brown managers were quite worried. So Hopefully you guys got some value from this. If you did, leave a like, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Rest of season rankings and all that stuff available on flockfantasy.com. Promo code FSE gets you 30% off, 7 days for free, and a free team review when you sign up annually. So check that out. That'll be linked down below in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.